So first thing on my list, I want to touch on our 2018 financial audit. Pleased to report that we did receive a clean audit. Our auditors are Brady March and Associates out of Grand Forks, North Dakota. It indicates we're in full compliance with all of our financial covenants and loan requirements that are set by the Rural Utility Service, the RUS. If you've been around a while, you remember that as the REA. That's called the RUS now. In addition to the audit, there's some more good financial news when you look in our financial statements. First off, operating revenues for 2018 increased $1.4 million over 2017. We closed the year with about $91.3 million in total revenue. Most of that sales increase is directly related to the weather. If you remember last winter, about this time, what should have been spring, but we had a really long, cold, drawn-out winter, and that for us leads to increased kilowatt-hour sales and increased revenue. And when the temps drop like that, similar to what we've seen so far this year, we've got a lot of members with heating loads, space heating, like off-peak and dual fuel programs. So when the temperatures drop, our sales and our revenues increase. So, it's bad for human beings, but good for business. I'll put it that way. From an expense standpoint, we actually saw a decrease in our wholesale power cost, and that's more than half of our total cost every given year, and that's paid to Great River Energy, and you'll hear from their representative when I'm done. But our local expenses only increased about 1% last year, and that includes adding 4 new employees. What those 4 new employees are doing is it's directly member contact and related to tree requests. When you've got a tree on your property you think is threatening the line, you'd call us, and historically we hadn't passed that off to a contractor to take care of that. Well, that body of work isn't going anywhere, and it was more cost effective for us to hire 4 internal people and a couple of bucket trucks with wood chipper trailers to do that work ourselves. We're actually saving a significant amount of money bringing that in-house. Our overall cost of electric service is about $87.3 million. Depreciation of our equipment and the interest expense related to poles and wires and transformers and substations and that other equipment, that accounts for more than $15 million of those expenses. Depreciation and interest are a large portion of our budget, and they are direct ownership costs of our distribution system. One of our biggest challenges is the cost of maintenance of our system and the number of miles we maintain every year. So our geographic service location is larger than most co-ops across the country. And that has a direct impact on our operating costs. Also, we operate in the land of 10 billion trees. I don't care what anybody says about 10,000 lakes. It's 10 billion trees as far as we're concerned. Tree clearing represents $4 to $5 million a year just in clearing trees out of our budget to maintain safe and reliable electric service. So the growth in this blue line, if you can't read that, that's operations and maintenance expenses per member. So it's around about $250. The growth in that blue line represents our commitment to safe and reliable electric service and aggressively cutting those trees. So this one tells another part of the story. That top line, that blue line, that represents the number of miles of distribution line that we own and maintain. As you can see from there, it's more than 8,300 miles of distribution line that we own and maintain for you. That's nearly 3 times a typical co-op in Minnesota or across the nation, which are the green and red lines down there. Now the flip side of that is this line here, we're the blue line, but what we're looking at here is the total kilowatt hours sold per mile of line. So what the story is here, that our members and you don't use a lot of electricity. So we've got a high number of miles of line with a lot of low usage customers on that. And part of that is driven by the number of cabins we have in our system, or seasonal residents, so that drives down the average. But in total, our members use significantly less than what you'd see typically across the state or across the nation. Shift gears a little bit, talk capital credits. Last year we paid back $4.1 million in capital credits. Average retirement you saw in December was, for our members, about $47, although everybody did get something. You would have seen it as bright green letters on your December bill. It would have said capital credit applied. And the reason we do that on the bills is to save on the cost of printing and mailing checks. We've got 43,000-ish members, and if we had to print and mail checks for every one of those capital credit retirements, that adds a significant cost. So by putting it directly on the bill, that saves us some real money, and it accomplishes the same thing as getting the money into your hands. So overall, we closed 2018 with about a $4 million operating margin. $4 million sounds like a lot, but if you equate that to over $91 million in revenue, it's not a real high profit margin percentage. We are mainly a cost-based utility. We're not driven by shareholder profits or anything like that. We're intended to recover our costs and meet our financial covenants. Looking forward, there's some more good news. If you were here last year, you heard me talk, well, we're going to try to get through 2018 without any sort of a rate increase or rate change. Well, the story now is the plan is to get through 2019 without any rate changes. So it's been several years since we've had to adjust rates at all. So it doesn't mean Mother Nature can't play a role in that. Knock on metal. But the plan is to get through 2019 without any sort of rate adjustments. I think it's because of wise budget management, but portion of it has to do with Great River Energy and a revenue deferral plan. I'll explain here in a little bit from RUS. So revenue deferral, what we did was we took some of 2018's revenue and margin and moved it into 2019 and 2020. And a couple of things that created that. It was kind of a strange summer. We had not a lot of major storms, but a lot of storms for a period of time. And after all that happened, after the fact, there was a federal disaster declaration made in our territory. So FEMA got involved and said there's disaster declaration. So we were able to accumulate all the costs over the period of almost an entire month, submit that to FEMA for an application for disaster recovery, and we got approval for a little over $960,000 in storm reimbursement. So that has a major impact on our local costs and our ability to keep rates flat. Another thing, Great River Energy, our power supplier, they were able to give us over the course of the year more than $1.5 million in credits on our power cost bills because of their favorable financial performance. So what it allowed us to do, we went to the RUS and said, hey, there's a couple things happen here that weren't planned, weren't budgeted, and it's creating a situation where we have some extra margin or net income, and asked them, will you approve us to use that in the 2 future years to offset any future rate increases? And they did grant approval for that. So as far as 2019 looks, sales so far are pretty good. It goes back to the miserable weather, but we're looking at more of a normal year. We're not expecting any anomalies like that. Not to say it can't happen, but we're looking at revenues about $91.4 million for 2019 and on kilowatt-hour sales of nearly $620 million. Touch on rates a bit. Our long-term rate philosophy that we adopted in 2012 is doing exactly what it was intended to do. And what that is to recover enough revenue through the fixed component of the rates that there's stability in the revenue when sales fluctuate, and that's largely due to weather. And that happens every year. And I think I'm fairly good at budgeting, but when you try to budget kilowatt-hour sales, I look like a fool at times, and that's not even in my control. So recovering the proper amount of those costs through that fixed component allows us to keep a more long-term focus so that we can make the investments that Greg was talking about in the safety and reliability of the system. If you're interested in more information, I'm sure you are, the financial statements are printed in the annual report, which is in your registration bag. Before I leave you, I want to touch on one more thing. Put in a plug for our Smart Hub app. It's our mobile app. You can also get there through a desktop or laptop computer, but really cool technology designed to make things easier and more convenient. You can monitor your electric usage, compare your bills, you can review your payment history, you can sign up for email or text message notifications, several different categories of notifications. You can even report an outage directly from a mobile app. So power goes out in the middle of the night, get in your mobile app, report the outage. That communicates directly to our outage management system in our office, so then you can go right back to bed.